welcome to the newsroom breaking this hour. Rescuers are combining through rubble in Gaza City following a series of Israeli airstrikes. Bulldozers are clearing debris as teams search for survivors. Particularly in the Tel Al-Hawa neighborhood, Gaza's civil defense agency report that 100 people were killed in what has been described as the deadliest night in the territory since the ceasefire. Let's listen into what was said.
ما زالت طواقمنا تعمل بالحد الأدنى وبالمعدات البسيطة في عملية انتشال الشهداء، كما زلنا نعمل في عمليات الفحر والتكسير لإخراج ما يمكن إخراجه من المصابين الذين حتى الآن عالقين تحت الركام.
الليلة نزلوها عليه تصاوب واستشهدوا 7 أنفار، زلمة ومرته وابنه وبنته، يعني ابن أخويا ومرته وابنه وبنته وبنات أخويا 2 وابن أخويا شاب، 7 أنفار استشهدوا والحمد لله.
Iran accuses Israel of violating ceasefire agreements in Gaza, Lebanon. The Iranian Foreign Ministry has accused Israel of repeatedly violating ceasefire agreements in the Gaza Strip, intensifying the tensions across the region. Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei has said that Israel's continued breaches of Gaza ceasefire deal, coupled with what he described as terrorist actions against civilians in Lebanon, reflect a broader pattern of aggression. According to Baghei, these actions demonstrate Israel's intent to undermine and obstruct economic development and reconstruction efforts in Lebanon. He has emphasized that such violations not only endanger regional peace, but also hinder humanitarian and rebuilding initiatives in areas already devastated by the conflict. The remarks come amid heightened hostilities and growing international concerns over repeated ceasefire violations, as both Gaza and Lebanon continue to face severe humanitarian and infrastructure challenges. Pope Leo was speaking during his general audience in the Vatican's St. Peter's Square, where he has talked about anti-Semitism and Hurricane Melissa. During his address, Pope Leo has condemned the anti-Semitism directed against Jews while highlighting the heritage shared with the Jewish people. He has also prayed for the people in Jamaica and Cuba who are struggling with the violent storm and flooding caused by the hurricane. Let's in fact listen into what he has said.
Così la Chiesa, memore del patrimonio che essa ha in comune con gli ebrei, è spinta non da motivi politici, ma da religiosa carità evangelica, deplora gli odi, le persecuzioni e tutte le manifestazioni dell'antisemitismo dirette contro gli ebrei in ogni tempo e da chiunque. Questi giorni si è abbattuto sulla Giamaica l'uragano Melissa, una tempesta della potenza catastrofica che sta provocando violente inondazioni. In queste ore, con forza devastante, sta attraversando Cuba. Sono migliaia le persone sfollate, mentre sono state danneggiate case, infrastrutture e diversi ospedali. Assicuro a tutti la mia vicinanza, pregando per coloro che hanno perso la vita, per quanti sono in fuga e per quelle popolazioni che in attesa degli sviluppi della tempesta stanno vivendo ore di ansia e preoccupazione.
Now we move on to our next news. Syria's interim president Ahmad al-Sharaa has said that the country has secured $28 billion in investments over the past 10 months following the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad's government last year. Speaking at the Future Investment Initiative conference in Riyadh, al-Sharaa has said that Syria was open for business and has urged foreign investors to take part in rebuilding the war-torn nation. Let's listen into what he has said.
يعني اليوم سوريا بعد خلال 10 أشهر وفي 6 أشهر الأولى دخل استثمارات ما يقارب 28 مليار دولار، وتعتبر يعني سوريا بعد خروجها البلدان التي خرجت من الأزمات ليس كلها كان متاح لها أن تنهض من جديد. لأنها تخرج من حرب ثم تدخل في دوامة من الأزمات، تخرج من حروب أهلية ثم تدخل في دوامة أزمات.
The remarks have come as Damascus embarks on the enormous task of reconstructing its shattered economy after more than a decade of conflict that has killed tens of thousands and displaced millions, as well as devastated the cities. The World Bank earlier this month estimated the cost of Syria's reconstruction at $216 billion. Since Assad's ousting, Saudi Arabia has played a leading role in re-engaging Damascus. Riyadh has signed a $6.4 billion in investment and partnership deals with Syria and, along with Qatar, pledged $15 million towards settling Syrian debt to the World Bank. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has also pushed for Washington to lift sanctions on Syria and helped arrange a landmark meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa earlier this year. Afghans shared concerns over... Now we move on to our next news. In Kandahar, near Afghanistan's border with Pakistan, residents are expecting growing concerns over the economic impact of stalled peace talks. Officials in Pakistan have announced that negotiations has failed. Locals say the uncertainty is affecting trade, livelihoods, and daily life, with many fearing further instability if diplomatic efforts remain an impasse. Let's listen in to what some of them have said.
خامخا دې کې به زیان راوړي، دلته به تعلیم ته صدمه رسېږي، دلته به اقتصاد ته صدمه رسېږي. موږ د نړیوال ټولنې څخه هم غواړو چې پر پاکستان فشار راوړي تر څو دوی د خپلو ناشمو اهداف څخه پرهیز وکړي او دوی بالاخره و خبرو ته لاره زمینه هواره شي تر څو خپل مشکلات د خبرو له لارې.
هغه هم په جنجالو سره اخته دي، نو د داګرو ذمواري خو موږ نه اخیستلی سو، نه په موږ پورې اړه لري، نه موږ ته لارې لاجې بندي کړي دي، دغه یې سړی نه سو راوښتلی.
Now we move on to our next news. WHO, World Health Organization, has said that it was appalled and deeply shocked by reports that more than 460 patients and their companions were killed at the Saudi maternity hospital in the Sudanese city of El Fasher. Following recent attacks and the abduction of medical staff, the reported killings come after Rapid Support Forces fighters captured El Fasher on Sunday, ending an 18-month siege marked by starvation and bombardment. The city's fall consolidates RSF controls over Darfur and has raised fears of ethnically motivated violence reminiscent of past atrocities in the region. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom has said that attacks on healthcare must stop immediately and unconditionally, urging a ceasefire and the protection of patients as well as medical workers under international humanitarian law. The International Committee of the Red Cross also voiced alarm, condemning reports of horrifying atrocities and immense suffering inflicted on civilians in El Fasher. WHO has also stated that before the latest attack, it had verified 185 assaults on health facilities in Sudan since the conflict erupted in April of 2023, which has resulted in 1,204 deaths so far and 416 injuries among health workers and patients. Among these, 49 attacks occurred in 2025 alone, which has killed 966 people. Tedros has also added that the WHO had received reports of the abduction of 4 doctors, a nurse, and a pharmacist from the same hospital. They have called for immediate release and for unhindered humanitarian access to provide medical aid. Now we move on. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has begun a 2-day state visit to Switzerland on October 29th. At the invitation of Swiss President Karin Keller-Sutter, the visit aims to strengthen bilateral ties in trade, investment, skills development, science, and culture. During the visit, the two countries have signed 2 cooperation agreements, one on arts, culture, and heritage, and another a letter of intent on peace, mediation, and democracy resilience. In a significant cultural gesture, Switzerland have returned several historical artifacts belonging to South Africa's Kuna royal family. Economic partnerships remain a key focus, with South Africa being Switzerland's 6th largest trading partner. President Ramaphosa is also scheduled to meet Swiss business leaders to discuss further economic cooperation and investment opportunities. Hundreds have gathered for anti-China. Now we move on. Hundreds of protesters in Seoul have taken to the streets with sharply contrasting messages, and as US President Donald Trump arrived in South Korea for the APEC summit. One rally near the US Embassy denounced Trump and called for stronger ties with Washington, while another close by demanded Beijing stop exerting influence, chanting "No China" and "CCP out." The demonstrations, though modest by South Korea's standards, reflect the diplomatic tightrope President Lee Jae-myung must walk as he hosts both Trump and China's Xi Jinping. This week, South Korea relies on US for security, but depends heavily on China as its largest trading partner. Let's listen in to some of the protesters.
We want a truly freedom and democratic Korea, and we love our country, and all the people are here. We love our country, but now we are in crisis because our current president, he lies a lot, and he opened the gate for China, and China tried to counter us. We don't want it. We love our country, and we want to take care of our country by ourselves.
그리고 미국이 트럼프 대통령이 우리나라의 약탈적인 대미 투자를 강요하고 있고, 그것을 결론 지으려고 온다고 생각했고, 그래서 그것에 대해서 반대의 목소리를 정확히 내야 된다고 생각해서 오늘 여기에 참여하게 되었습니다.
Deny Korean-American alliance. Trump's style is not good, not justice, not fair. Tariff negotiation is not good. We don't want justice, Korean-American trade. Fair rule we want. No.
Now we move on to our next news. Boeing has reported a $5.4 billion third quarter loss as mounting costs tied to delays in certifying its 777X aircraft weighed on the U.S. plane maker's results. The company has stated that revenue rose 30% to $23.3 billion, driven by higher commercial jet deliveries compared with the same period last year. However, the gains were overshadowed by a $4.9 billion charge related to the 777X program, which has faced prolonged scrutiny from U.S. aviation regulators. Chief Executive Kelly Ortberg has stated and highlighted recent progress, including Federal Aviation Administration approval this month to boost production of Boeing 737 MAX jets. He has added that Boeing achieved positive free cash flow during the quarter, but acknowledged that significant work remains to restore the company's performance and credibility. Ortberg also addressed labor unrest, saying Boeing's defense unit in St. Louis was effectively implementing contingency plans after more than 3,000 workers voted to reject a contract offer. The company is accelerating recruitment and welcoming employees who choose to return to work, while union leaders accuse Boeing of refusing to negotiate in good faith. Boeing shares have fallen 0.9% in pre-market trading following the earnings announcement. Now we move on to our next news. Voters across the Netherlands headed to the polls in a tightly contested snap election dominated by debates over immigration, housing, shortages, and the future of Dutch engagement in Europe. Polling stations were opened in venues ranging from city halls and schools to windmills, churches, and the Anne Frank House Museum, where Amsterdammers lined up early to cast their ballots. The vote was followed by the collapse of the previous four-party coalition led by anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders, who triggered its downfall in June over disagreements on asylum policy. Geert Wilders' Party for Freedom is projected to win the most seats, but mainstream parties have ruled out forming a coalition with him and his party. The vote highlights deep polarization over migration, housing shortages, and the Netherlands' role in Europe. Coalition negotiations are expected to begin on Thursday following proportional representation results in exit polls after 9 p.m. local time. Let's listen into a few comments made by voters.
Ik hoop heel erg dat de partij waar ik op ga stemmen, Partij van de Arbeid, dat die de grootste wordt. Dat we in ieder geval een links kabinet krijgen.
One big theme is the future, and for one that's climate. And I have kids, and I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and make right choices. But I also would like the national parties to make the right choices. So that's for me very.
I feel that it was necessary, and I'm happy that I can vote again. I feel like the last period in the Dutch politics has been a bit turbulent, and I don't feel like a lot of things have changed in a good way. So I'm voting for change, and I hope that the politics, the people in the parliament can work a little bit more together and make it better. Yeah.
Places like the Anne Frank House and other memorials that serve today as a polling station across the country remind us of what has happened in the past when democracy and the rule of law were absent. The fact that people can cast their votes here in places like this, places that then finally shape our common future, I feel is critical for our lives individually, socially, as a community, as a country.
Now we move on and we stay in this region. Here, the election in Amsterdam is being closely watched as a barometer for the strength of the far right across Europe. Over the past 2 decades, the Netherlands has seen a steady rise in populist and nationalist parties, and many residents say the country now feels more divided than ever. Let's now listen into what some young people on what they think about the elections.
I think the country is a bit divided over the last 20 years, so I hope this election will be about coming together. He has a very big love-hate relationship in the country, right? So I think he has a good network. He's a smart guy, but people on the right, I think he's very elite. So.
We have to vote because there are so many things going on in the world, and I just want it to be better for everybody and not just for a certain group of people.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm voting.
Now, on the anniversary of the last year's devastating floods in Valencia, President Carlos Mazón has acknowledged shortcomings in the region's response. More than 230 people lost their lives in the disaster. Mazón has admitted that while officials faced unimaginable circumstances. Let's listen in.
Hace un año, cuando las riadas provocaron consecuencias devastadoras que hoy seguimos sanando humanamente y reparando materialmente, hubo cosas que debieron funcionar mejor. Hoy no es el día para la confrontación, pero sí debemos reflexionar ante el desamparo que sintieron tantos valencianos, también los días posteriores, cuando fuimos conociendo la magnitud de una tragedia inabarcable. Tratamos de hacer lo mejor en una circunstancia inimaginable, pero en muchos casos no fue suficiente y hoy, de nuevo, debemos.
4 Bulgarians have gone on trial in Paris for allegedly defacing a Jewish memorial with red handprints in May of 2024. Prosecutors say the act may have been part of foreign interference, possibly linked to Russia. The case has drawn attention amid ongoing concerns about attacks on Jewish sites across Europe. Authorities say the trial will examine both the motives and the wider implications of such acts. Let's listen into what the defendant's lawyer has said.
Alors, je représente un des mis en cause, effectivement, qui reconnaît avoir tagué, effectivement, différents immeubles dans Paris, dont l'enceinte du mémorial de la Shoah et plus précisément le mur des Justes. En revanche, il nie catégoriquement toute intention. C'est toute la difficulté de ce procès, puisque le tribunal, en réalité, n'est pas saisi des faits d'ingérence, puisque l'infraction a été créée postérieurement à cette affaire. Donc au moment où les faits sont commis, en fait, il n'y a pas d'infraction d'ingérence. Or, nous savons tous, évidemment, que l'ombre de la Russie plane sur cette salle d'audience, mais malheureusement, ce n'est pas la Russie qui va être jugée, ce sont des simples exécutants qui n'avaient même pas conscience d'agir indirectement pour les intérêts.
After the multi-million-dollar jewel theft at the Louvre Museum, Paris police prefect Patrice Faure has said that he was firmly opposed to setting up a permanent police station inside of the building. The request has been made by Louvre President Laurence Descartes, who admitted to serious security failures during this heist. On October 19th, thieves used a motorized lift to enter the museum's Apollo Gallery through a window and escaped with 8 pieces of crown jewels. The first alert to police did not come from the museum's internal alarms, but from a cyclist who spotted the thieves outside. Prefect Faure has rejected the call for a dedicated police post inside of the Louvre Museum, saying it would set a poor precedent and offer little defense against fast, mobile crews. He has stressed that the focus should instead be on systematic and technological security improvements. Let's listen into what he has said.
Suite à l'audition de Madame Descartes, c'est est-il pertinent ou pas de disposer d'un commissariat à l'intérieur du musée? Bon, alors je ne vais pas paraphraser ce qu'a dit mon prédécesseur, actuel ministre de l'Intérieur, mais bien évidemment, j'y suis fermement opposé pour 2 raisons. Parce que si nous donnions droit à cette demande, en fait, tout l'établissement demanderait à ce que nous installions un musée, un commissariat dans chacun des musées ou chacune des infrastructures étatiques ou pas, d'ailleurs, qui couvrent notre territoire. Et je pense que là, évidemment, nous aurons quelques difficultés, étant entendu, en plus, qu'en général, quand on est cambrioleur, on ne reste pas dans l'endroit où on a cambriolé, mais on essaie d'aller plutôt à l'extérieur pour sortir les bijoux. Et donc, je préfère rester plutôt sur la partie parimétrique, ce qui est déjà fait.
Now we may move on to our next news and we stay in the region. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has declined to commit to a previous pledge not to raise taxes on working people ahead of a budget next month, by saying that upcoming forecasts would show the economy was in a worse state than he thought. Conservative Party opposition leader Kemi Badenoch has asked Keir Starmer if he stood by his promise not to increase income tax, social security contribution, or value-added sales tax. Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch have reacted to this situation. Let's listen in.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the Leader of the Opposition is now finally talking about the economy. I can update the House, Mr. Speaker. Retail sales are higher than expected. Inflation is lower than expected. Growth has been upgraded this year. And, Mr. Speaker, the UK stock market is at an all-time high. The budget is on the 26th of November, and we will lay out our plans. But I can tell the House now that we will build a stronger economy, we will cut NHS waiting lists and deliver a better future for our country.
All he knows how to do is tax, tax, tax. If you work, they tax you more. If you save, they tax you more. If you buy a home, they tax you more. None of these taxes were in the manifesto, which he had 4 years to prepare. Mr. Speaker, he is raising taxes because he is too weak to control spending. He's blaming us, he's blaming the OBR. Last week they were blaming Brexit. Isn't the truth that with this Prime Minister, it's always someone else's fault?
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has stated that he would not announce the budget plans in advance, but expected downgrade of Britain's productivity outlook by official forecasts presented a judgment on the Conservatives' 14 years in office.
То, что вы делаете, то, что делают ваши боевые товарищи, наши бойцы, офицеры, это важнейшее дело, которым занимается сейчас страна, обеспечивает свою безопасность, безопасность наших людей на длительную перспективу. Но не менее важно то, что мы за решением вот этих важнейших текущих проблем все-таки не забываем и о совершенствовании и укреплении нашего стратегического потенциала. Тоже слышали наверняка, совсем недавно была испытана новая, новейшая ракета неограниченной дальности с ядерной двигательной установкой. Она имеет безусловные преимущества. Мы можем гордиться достижениями наших ученых, специалистов, инженеров.
As you've seen, Russian president stated that Russia had tested a Poseidon nuclear-powered super-autonomous torpedo and that it had been a great success. There are few confirmed details about the Poseidon in the public domain, but it is essentially an autonomous nuclear-capable torpedo, which is capable of triggering radioactive ocean swells to render coastal cities uninhabitable. Putin has reacted to the situation. Let's listen in.
То, что вы делаете, то, что делают ваши боевые товарищи, наши бойцы, офицеры, это важнейшее дело, которым занимается сейчас страна, обеспечивает свою безопасность, безопасность наших людей на длительную перспективу. Но не менее важно то, что мы за решением вот этих важнейших текущих проблем все-таки не забываем и о совершенствовании и укреплении нашего стратегического потенциала. Тоже слышали наверняка, совсем недавно была испытана новая, новейшая.
Putin has last weekend held a nuclear launch drill, and on Sunday he has announced that Russia has successfully tested its nuclear-powered Bury-Stick cruise missile, a nuclear-capable weapon Moscow says can pierce any defense shield. With that, it's a wrap on the newsroom. Keep watching for more news breaking updates.
Thank you.